Is a Celtic deity calling you? I've been noticing the questions that people are asking about Celtic gods on social media, and some really come up a lot, so I thought I'd tackle a few of them here. Now, we often have answers for people who want to connect with specific Irish gods and goddesses, so I thought I would generalise a little bit. But if you need other videos that are specific to Ireland gods only, then please check out our playlists here on the Irish Pagan School channel. But when we talk about humans relating to deities, we're talking about personal experience and personal opinion. And what I'm going to say here, what I always say, what I say in my books, like the Morrigan book here behind me, it's always just based on my experience. And I think people really hear what they want to hear a lot of the time when I'm talking. I absolutely could be referred to as a Celtic polytheist for over 30 years, over 3 decades. I'm an Irish 3, I'm a priest of the Morrigan for over about 25 years. I've also got a master's in Irish history, and I spent a decade managing one of our most important heritage centres, Cruachan at Rathcron, which is, again, one of our most important sacred sites, or complexes of sites to be more specific, the home of Queen Maeve and the Morrigan. All that being said, it still doesn't give me the right to say that what you're experiencing is right or wrong categorically. If my viewpoint helps you, if my experience helps you, if the decades of research and learning and listening to other people that I can transmit to you here in this free YouTube video helps you, great. If it doesn't feel right, pay attention to that feeling and feel free to fuck off. It's no skin off our nose and no skin off your nose, and we can just go our separate ways, right? No harm, no foul. Anyway, a lot of people have questions about being called by a deity, or they can't identify which deity is calling them. Now, at the Morrigan Academy, I have a whole free guide about this. If you go to morrigan.academy/guide, you will get a PDF download with a little journal in it that tells you how to know if the Morrigan is calling you specifically. Again, we have done this work specifically, and I just wanted to get a little bit more general here in this video. But that's if you know what deity is actually calling you. But a lot of people really don't know or can't identify which deity is calling. So I'm going to tackle some of that today. Honestly, I still will have a focus on Irish gods because that's where my expertise lies. This could apply to any Celtic deities, right? But I am going to stay in my lane as much as possible. Now, there seems to be an expectation these days that everything happens in the drama. And one of the things that I really like to share when I'm teaching is that genuine spiritual self-development, self-growth experiences don't happen with an "oh wow" response. They happen with a response. Again, in my experience and in my experience of teaching thousands, tens of thousands of students at this point, right? Those moments are actually much more profound. But there's this like TikTokery going around that basically you're going to be living your life and then have some major experience like a dream, a vision, an encounter with a crow, and that's it, you're called. And look, this can definitely happen, but it feels like it's been more commonly talked about and expected even in recent years. And it could be that everything is gestures at everything out in the world. So maybe the Irish gods or the Celtic gods are getting more active. That's certainly a way to look at things. Or maybe because more people are open to Celtic deities now, the gods think it's worth taking more of an interest. I'd love if that was true. I really wouldn't mind if it was true. But I think that there's probably more to it because, look, been around a while. I think I did my first big pagan event when I was 18 and I ended up on RT Nationwide TV, and I was embodying the goddess Talchu at a ritual dramatic reenactment that was an activism protest for the destruction of some of the mounds around Telltown in County Meath, which were sacred sites of the goddess Talchu. Long story short, I ended up there and I was basically thrown into a white bedsheet robe and put on the telly. So I've been around for a long time. I've been in the Irish pagan scene, both here in Ireland, but also in the Celtic polytheist online communities. Again, that'll be 30 years now this year. All of that is really interesting to me, how things are developing. But it used to be, in my day, it used to be that being pagan was something that we did in groups. Before the internet, how did you discover other pagans in your area? You had to look in the vegan cafe, if there was a vegan cafe. Probably wasn't in Ireland, to be perfectly honest, but weird bookshops or anything like that. Basically, like hippie craft shops was the closest we had. And if there was a little notice saying, oh, gathering of like-minded individuals, that was the best you got. But where possible, people were meeting face to face for studying, for rituals, for magic, for festivals. And now Celtic polytheism, and I think all polytheism really, or all paganism even, is driven by the internet. It's much more centred on the individual and what you want and what you need rather than community driven, which I think is where humans need to be. But when you're actually experiencing other people's paganism in real time, when you're meeting in a group, when you're part of a coven, when you're part of a study group, when you actually get to check in, we still get to check in online in our communities for sure, but it's very different sitting around somebody's sitting room after hours than it is trying to gauge who's real and who's not in a Facebook group. It just is. When you're face to face with people and where you get to be in a more connected community, even if that is online, I'm not denigrating the online spaces. Obviously, we run a lot of online communities and we're very particular about how we run them because we want them to be safer spaces. I don't think on the internet anything can be guaranteed safe, but we run safer spaces on the internet than what's usually available. But you really notice when you're in those kind of communities, smaller groups, you notice that people just have stronger experiences than others. Like some rituals are going to feel like they really hit and that they're really powerful, and some don't. And you begin to understand where you fit, and you get that context for the bigger picture. Now, again, with the Morrigan stuff, for example, because I was leading tours into the Morrigan's cave every day for over a decade, I was not just figuring my experiences with the Morrigan. So when I talk about the Morrigan, I'm not just talking about the Morrigan came to me once in a dream or a vision and that's it. But what we do have is shared experience. I can gauge where there is 10 people, 20 people, 100 people having the same experience over 10 years, then that might be something to start paying attention to. In the first year, I remember going to the cave and going in and out of the cave. And it was an experience that I had, which was a very strong experience with sound and voice within the cave. But I would say every second or third person that was coming out of the cave, who was there for a spiritual reason, not just a tourism reason, let's put that little boundary around it. But every second or third person started to talk to me without me saying a word. I never prompted their experiences in the cave. I would facilitate them. I would guide them, as in the physical guide. Watch your head here. We're going into a slippy bit here, that kind of thing. And then we would get down into the cave and I would turn off the lights and let them have their own experience, basically. So these experiences were coming back. And nearly every second or third person was telling me of an urge to make noise. Now, when you look at the Morrigan's mythology, that makes a lot of sense. I hadn't really studied, certainly at the start of my tour guiding experience in Rathcroghan, I hadn't studied the Morrigan's mythology or stories as clearly as I have now, obviously. But that was just really obvious. And it actually inspired me to study the Morrigan's mythology. And now I have a whole class on the magic of sound and noise that the Morrigan is involved in. And it all really stems, again, not just from my experience, but from the collated experiences of students, of people that I was guiding, of visitors, of seekers, all of that I was blessed to be in the position to actually facilitate. But I think when you're on your own on the internet, you're just the centre of your own attention. And it's very easy to get sucked into this kind of entitlement of, I want this big dramatic effect. I need change. I need connection. I need help. So obviously, these gods, these Celtic deities, these gods and goddesses are there for that, right? What else are they there for? Look, that is honestly the feedback that we get from people who come seeking. If you're combining that with internet trends, so, the external locus of valuation, and what that means is just basically that you value the outside perception of what's going on. So that's likes, shares, comments, feedback, all of that stuff. It's very easy to end up with these incredibly unrealistic expectations. And no more than on Instagram, like people are posting their lifestyle and they're really making sure that everybody sees their best side, whether that's a camera angle or, which I'm not very good at, but there we go. Or if they're doing food, say, the pictures that make it to Instagram might be the third time that they've tried that recipe and the first two were shit, but the third one turned out great. So nobody sees the first and second, all they see is the third. And it's the same with dramatic experiences. And some are made up, honestly, some are true, but it gives a really false big picture, I think, of interaction with Celtic deities. And then for the innocent kind of person coming along who just wants help or wants support, like, they feel that they're going to get it wrong, or that they're doing it wrong, or that they're not good enough, because interaction with the gods has always been portrayed as exciting and dramatic and just, what's wrong with me that I don't get that kind of thing. Now, my own experience really would say otherwise. And just to walk you through, like when I was 14, in a school meditation meant to help us find God, I had what I could only term as a vision. It went into the other world, met a goddess, and she basically embraced me and claimed me. And I've never really seen her again since, but I actually think she's something to do with the island of Ireland, something to do with the sovereignty. It was dramatic. I think at the time I probably needed to be knocked over the head to set me on the right path, because I was going down a very wrong path. And let's just say it wouldn't have ended up very well for myself, certainly, but probably for a lot of other people too. But that was 35 years ago, whatever. And it's definitely not how I have interacted with gods every day since. Most of my work with the Morrigan is daily. It's consistent, but it's very unglamorous kind of devotion. It's showing up. It's building relationship. It's making offerings. It's doing the work that she asks, which could be teaching or writing or visiting or guardianship of sacred sites, but mostly just sorting out misinformation, trying to help people find authentic sources, which are not me, by the way. Anybody who's been around me for a hot minute knows that I never put myself between anybody and their gods. I try and give them the tools and resources. Look at my library. Like, this is thousands and thousands that I've spent on books so that I can make sure that I have the best resources to hand, so that as a public historian I can process and teach, and not just myself, obviously John as well. We can teach this in an accessible way, because third level, university level degrees are not for everyone, and not everybody has access to it. Not everybody has been privileged or blessed enough to be able to access any of that. So why wouldn't we help them, and why wouldn't we put the tools and resources out to support them if we can? But it's definitely not all visions and possessions and prophecies. Like, those things have happened over the 30 years, but they're rare. They're very much the exception and not the rule. And how do you know if a Celtic deity is calling you? Like, Irish ones specifically are going to be quite obvious about it, or at least they're going to be persistent about it. If there is a piece of work that you need to do, and mind that, actually really understand that if you are getting called, if you're one of those relatively rare ones who get called by a deity, all that means is work. It's not an ego trip. If people are getting called by the deity and only ever have to do things that they love and that makes them feel good and happy and socially higher up in status, then you'd maybe have to look at, are they actually being called by the deity? Or is it something that they're trying to boost their ego with, or projection or fantasy or whatever? Because again, in my experience, take it or fucking leave it, in my experience, when people get called by deities, it's to work. And it's unglamorous and it's filthy work sometimes. Literally filthy work if you're on a sacred site in Ireland. But the other side of all this is that a lot of people really don't get called. But you don't need to be called before you can be a Celtic polytheist. And polytheism just means believing in or worshipping many gods, or working with many gods. Or before you can work with Irish gods. You can just start building relationship. You can start honouring them. You can start making offerings. You can start saying hi to them of a day. You can put a little few things on an altar that you think might be symbolic to them, and just start showing up for them. And it really is that simple. You don't need permission. You can light a candle, you can say prayers, you can give an offering, you can meditate, you can do all those things, but you don't have to. But you have to be okay with the fact that they might not respond as well. Or that it might take way longer than you think it should take to hear back from them or to get any sense of them, right? Now, maybe they will, maybe they won't. And even if they do, it can often be hard to be sure that's what's happening when you're only starting out. This is how humans have always been with gods. I don't know where we're getting the idea now that we're feeling like the gods owe us a response or owe us. Like, these are gods. They're actual, literal deities. And we are mere humans. So why would they give a feck about us, like, honestly? And why would they give a feck about your feelings? Contact with deities, contact with Celtic deities, with Irish deities, is about building relationships. Devotional, where you're giving offerings, and devotions can be anything from dedicating physical movement to them, to creating art, to singing, to praying, to, again, offerings and worship and that side of things. Or they can be reciprocal relationships. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But you're the one with the scratching post for a very long time in a reciprocal relationship like that. Sometimes it's just as simple as, hi, how are you? I think you're amazing. And you're just showing up and you are worshipping them from afar. And I'm thinking, oh, why do we suddenly think that is the way things are going when we think about a lot of the less than savoury aspects to our modern culture? There is a certain section of society who thinks that they're owed attention, or they're owed grace or friendship or even love or sex. That's not how it works. It's not how it works between humans. It's not how it works between humans and gods, for sure. So you can just show up to the deity and say, I think you're amazing. Hi, here's this present. An offering can be something that you have created or built or prepared. It can be praise poetry. It can be prayers, it can be your labour, it can be dedicating to a particular cause, it can be money offerings to a charity. But the offering, it's not just I'm showing up because I have to earn a response. And even when people think that they're doing it right, they're still in that sense of entitlement. Because the hard truth is, you are showing up to a god or a goddess because you think they're amazing and they're worth worship. They're already giving something to us just by existing. Maybe they will grant you some favour at some point because it's something that they're known for, but maybe not either. Now, in Irish tradition specifically, it's not just an Irish tradition thing, but it is very strong in Irish tradition, where we have right relationship, which is reciprocity, reverence, respect. It's making sure that we're on this two-way street. It's decolonising and decolonisation work, which is definitely not about being entitled to anything, feeling that you're entitled to anything that anybody else, whether a human or a deity, has as theirs. It's not about demanding, it's mutual respect and exchange. And look, sometimes we do see clear signs. I know this is a bit doom and gloom, right? Harsh truths, nobody ever wants to hear it. I'll be the bad guy now on Reddit again after all this. But sometimes we see really clear signs that our offerings are welcome. That can definitely happen. Sometimes we have really strong feelings or even visions that God or a goddess is present, but sometimes we don't. If you do get a god or a goddess either showing up for you after you've started showing up for them or calling you in the first place, it's because they want something. It's because they have work for you to do. And whether that's devotional work or whether it's actual work that you need to do out in the world, all of that can be part of it. And I would absolutely suggest that you build a relationship, you don't commit to anything. I talk a lot about contracts, and oaths or vows or contracts, or however you want to frame it, really shouldn't be taken lightly, and they can be negotiated. Before you sign away your firstborn, please read the fine print and negotiate and make sure that you are getting something of value back if you're giving something of value. And that's with a formal commitment. That's like taking up a priesthood or taking up a particular act of service, right? But like, these relationships aren't simple. They're messy, they're challenging. They require work and respect and self-growth and self-development, self-awareness. All of those things come before any kind of big rewards, right? And if somebody is being called by a god or a goddess, if you have an experience that feels a bit off, that feels like there's something shady going on, even if they do identify themselves, like, it's on you to verify that. It's on you to make sure that you are actually talking to who you think you're talking to. And you can only really do that by getting to know the mythology, by talking to other people, by understanding that if you have an experience that's out of the ordinary, maybe it's not the Morrigan that you're dealing with. Maybe it's something completely different and you need to be a bit careful. But if you think that you're being contacted by a Celtic god or goddesses, again, just do your homework. Read the myths, read the actual translations of medieval texts like Chira. Morgan Daimler does a fantastic translation of Chira, which is the second battle of Mythira. Brilliant place to start learning about Irish gods and goddesses, definitely. I think you have to get it from the Evil Empire, but it's £6 online from that shopping emporium. Just learn about the culture, learn about the language, even if it's a few words. Make an offering, be patient, keep your feet on the ground. You don't have to learn from me, but do try and learn from Irish sources. Do try and ground yourself in the context and the culture of the time and the history of Ireland where, all of these things were happening or were supposed to be happening. Like, for example, the Morrigan would be associated with Cruachan, as in Rathcroghan in County Roscommon, with rivers, with caves, with battlefields. If she's calling to you, you would expect reasonably themes of sovereignty, battle, prophecy, transformation, magic, divination, and you would expect to be challenged. She is a challenging goddess. Bridget, for example, is associated with Kildare, with sacred wells, with healing, with smithcraft, with poetry. So you could expect reasonably something to do with fire. You could expect creativity. You could expect inspiration or transformation through fire. The Dagda is associated with abundance, with protection, with shaping the land, with Brunaboyna or Newgrange, with harvest as well to a certain extent. So expect generosity, expect cauldrons, expect harps and music for the joy and the emotions. The three strains, John does some great videos on the Dagda if you're interested. Definitely look those up. But also expect hard work and community care when you're dealing with the Dagda. These aren't vague energies. They're specific gods, specific goddesses with very particular stories, associations to very particular places in the landscape, and they all have their own cultural contexts. So if you're being called, a good judgment of it is, does it actually fit the tradition? But always, and I always say this, keep a journal, keep a record of everything. Look for the patterns, because it's not about one big dramatic vision or meditation or experience or happening. They show up in patterns. They are persistent. Talk to other practitioners. Talk to people that you can trust. Stay off Reddit. Find communities where people are actually about education and not about ego, because that is so important, right? And again, it does not have to be mine. Please understand that listening to Irish voices, I am not the only Irish voice on the internet. Do your fucking homework and find others if you don't like me for any reason, right? But also then, don't assume that every kind of stray thought that you're having or every feeling is a message. My relationship with the Morrigan has developed over like 20, 25 years. And it started quietly but forcefully, but has been sustained by daily practice, study, daily service, by showing up consistently, by doing the work that she put in front of me. That's why I'm here on the internet, right? So, to sum it all up, can a Celtic deity call you? Yes, absolutely. Do they always, or do they have to? No, absolutely not. Do you need to be called? No, no way. Can you figure out which deity, if they don't identify themselves, or if you're unsure that who they've identified is not necessarily them? You can, but that's where you would maybe really try and get the help of somebody more experienced. Definitely do research if you don't have access to somebody more experienced. But if a deity wants your attention, they're usually not subtle, especially the Irish lads. Lads and lasses and the in-betweeners. But they're not subtle. Sometimes the signs can be a little bit subtle, but they're very persistent. You won't miss it. And if you are ignoring it over time, they tend to get stronger then, right? But not every spiritual experience is a God calling you. Sometimes you have your own experiences with ancestors or with supernatural nature spirits or the other world or anything like this. And sometimes a crow is just a crow, right? So come at all this with a good attitude, with an open mind. Leave your entitlement at the door. Just be curious about it. Be open. Look at these gods as just the amazing beings that they actually are. And really try and get like solid, your feet on very solid ground within that kind of cultural context. Now, of course, if you want to learn more about Irish spirituality and deities, check out the rest of the Irish Pagan School. We've got everything you could possibly want. Courses, community resources, mostly free. About 80% of what we do is free. And then we teach classes as well. The classes are taught by myself and by my partner John, but also by about 10 other native Irish practitioners. Very much rooted in the tradition, very much having these clear ethical boundaries. So the links are all in the description. Slán go fóill. I will see you in the next video.